NASCAR did something impressive today to convert a historic football stadium into a quarter-mile short track in downtown Los Angeles and race on it in front of 50,000 fans. That's impressive, no matter how you slice it. Now, the real question is, was this event an actual success? That's what we're going to talk about here today. Gotta love recording in hotel rooms. Why do I look pink? Ooh. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove on the road. I'm filming this late Sunday night in my hotel near Anaheim, California. That's right, Disneyland, just about a mile or so that way. I just got back from the Clash, the LA Clash, the Clash at the Coliseum. That's right, I flew all the way from Southeast Texas to see this inaugural event. I bought my ticket months ago, back when, really soon after they went on sale for the first time, because I knew then if NASCAR managed to pull this off, it was going to be a sight to behold. I couldn't miss it, so I was there in person. Today, I want to share some of my thoughts about the event as a whole, what went right, what went wrong at the facility itself, what I thought about the format and the actual style of racing that we saw across the heats, the last chance qualifier, and the main event. We'll talk about the many entertainment offerings to fans in attendance, because that's what this event was really about. Sure, the fans tuning in on TV at home were very important, but NASCAR built this event for fans to attend in person. The reason they put this thing in downtown Los Angeles, the second most populated city in the United States, is to put butts in seats. Butts that otherwise probably wouldn't go to a NASCAR event. NASCAR kept touting this stat this weekend that apparently nearly 70% of the people that went to the race today, this was their first NASCAR race ever. Whether that number is exact or not does not matter. The point of this event was to open NASCAR stock car racing up to fans that otherwise had not seen much of it or had been more or less unwilling to give it a serious chance. So I'm going to analyze today's race mainly through that lens. Now, obviously, since I was there in person and I'm filming this just a couple hours after the checkered flag, I have not gone back and watched much of the TV broadcast. I really don't know how Tony Stewart did in the booth alongside Mike Joy and Clint Boyer. I saw on Twitter some people complaining about commercials over green flag laps, but I don't know how big of a problem that really was. So I don't have a whole lot to say about the TV coverage. I know a lot of times, especially early in the year, I like to talk about Fox's coverage and then the summer NBC's coverage. Not going to talk about that too much here today. I'm going to focus on the in-person event. And really, to start off, I need to divide this event into three separate categories. Let's first begin with the facility. That's the most obvious one. It's the LA Memorial Coliseum, the site of the first Super Bowl. A beautiful, iconic, historic venue. I was very impressed with how NASCAR dolled the place up, the signage, their logos, the track itself, freshly paved, looked beautiful. I was impressed with the facility as well for something that's, what, nearly 100 years old, I believe. It felt very modern. I mean, yes, all the big stonework was kind of old school and very cool, but the facility was comfortable. I mean, yeah, it was tight at times because there were a lot of people packed in there, but you know, I felt like the concession stands were all very modern, the restrooms were fine. I thought my seat was pretty comfortable. As stadium seats go, big screens were clearly visible, so I thought the facility was certainly capable of hosting a major NASCAR event, and I thought it succeeded in that department. But there were some drawbacks. You know, it's clear that whether it was NASCAR's call, probably not, it was probably more the LA Coliseum's call, but no matter whose call it was, this event was handled close to how I imagine an NFL game would be handled. I haven't been to an NFL game in like 13 or 14 years. I've been to a lot of MLB games, a lot of NBA games. It felt closer to going to a baseball game than it did going to a NASCAR race. For example, there were very strict bag policies. You know, you couldn't bring in a cooler, which I know for some NASCAR fans is a total deal breaker. Parking, of course, was extremely limited. There was a lot right next to the track going for $100 a space. There were some parking garages a few blocks away that I think were reserving spots for like $40, $50, which is still like more than double what I'm willing to pay for really any downtown sporting event. Like when I go downtown for a Rockets game or an Astros game, I'm paying $20 to park at most. So 50, ooh, definitely expensive. It's LA. Expected. Concessions were expensive, $5 for a bottle of water. But again, if you're living in LA, if you used to going to Dodgers games or Angels games or Lakers games, which I've not been to any of those for the record, I imagine you're used though to paying $5 for water, $15 for some nice beer. But I do mention that because it was different than most NASCAR events that I go to. It was packed. I will say this, there are a lot of long lines. Most of the lines moved pretty quick, but it was crowded. There were plenty of concessions, plenty of bathrooms, but some of the lines did get pretty intense. And I'll say this, some of the signage around the facility was lacking. Like, it was kind of confusing at first where to go, when things opened up. Like, the gates didn't open until 10 a.m. local time. The first heats began at noon. I'm used to showing up to the track at like 7, 8 in the morning and checking out the fan zone, the midway, etc. All that stuff was closed off until 10 a.m., which was a little strange. Anyway, I'll cover more of these details in my vlog that you'll see later this week. Let's shift gears to the entertainment side. So first was the facility. Second, let's talk about the entertainment, because NASCAR put a clear emphasis on the entertainment, bringing in Pitbull, Ice Cube, DJ Ski, the Grand Marshal lineup of Eric Dickerson, Matt Leinart, Misty May Trainer, and more. Danny Trejo is in the crowd. I saw Kyle Busch, I think, was hosting the D'Amelio sisters, the TikTok girls. God, I sound so old. But point is, there were a lot of celebrities around. It's LA, it's a big event, to be expected. I thought the Pitbull concert was all right. It was certainly lively, upbeat, all the things you'd expect Pitbull to be. I saw a lot of fans on social media, fans who I think were watching at home on TV, were really excited about the Ice Cube concert. I saw that got rave reviews. I must say, in person, it didn't really feel any different than the Pitbull show. I thought it was fine, it was all right. Even if you're not into that style of music, it was like, okay, it's upbeat, it's enjoyable. I guess he's hyping up the crowd, but I really wasn't blown away by it. I really wasn't blown away by either live performance. They were kind of just filler, quite honestly. But I'm sure for some of the casual fans who maybe this is their first race, I'm sure they enjoyed seeing or hearing familiar names and voices during those race breaks. I'll say this about DJ Ski. He kept the music going all day long. From noon to whatever, the race ended at what, like 6 local time or so? It was non-stop. Like, I'll say this, I'm used to there being some lulls in the action at NASCAR races, you know, before the race starts, for example. During the caution periods, you just hear the low rumble of engines, that's about it. No, not the case today at the LA Coliseum. There was constantly loud music playing, or there were people walking around the crowd interviewing fans who were always really hyped up. It was noisy, constantly noisy, even when the engines weren't cranked or the cars weren't even racing. So it presented a very lively atmosphere, but at least in my case, and again, I'm only 24, but maybe I'm getting really old. It was a little much, just a little too much. I needed some room to breathe here and there, but it was certainly lively. I think DJ Ski did his job. I know I talked to a lot of fans who really enjoyed all the entertainment options, who thought the facility was really nice. I talked to a lot of fans who were either from the LA area and been to a lot of races like at Auto Club or Las Vegas or Phoenix, but I also talked to some fans who had not been to a NASCAR race before. This was their first race, and universally, they all thought the entertainment was at least interesting, was enjoyable. They all thought the track was beautiful, that NASCAR did a really good job sort of commandeering the facility for the weekend. Everyone I talked to was very impressed by NASCAR's presence in the facility. That was universal. I don't think I talked to a single person who thought it was bad. And I talked to older fans, younger fans, I talked to a wide mix of characters, and I got nothing but rave reviews from them. So that tells me that the general consensus was that this was a fun event. Fans who attended it had a good time. I think that means mission accomplished in many ways for NASCAR. But the last category, that third category that I haven't even talked about yet, and I know this is a race review video, we're finally going to talk about the racing itself. Look, NASCAR wanted this to be a show. The season really starts in 2 weeks at Daytona. That's the first points race. That's the Daytona 500. This was supposed to be entertaining. NASCAR told the drivers to be aggressive. That's clear. It wasn't all haymakers. There was a pretty decent mix of clean, straight up racing, especially near the front of the field once things got strung out. You had that mix of, you know, clean air racing versus managing lap traffic racing. And then you did, in a couple of occasions, devolve into chaotic, disrespectful racing with nothing but dive bombs left and right. So you had a mix of everything. The cars looked fast as well, at least in person. I'm not entirely sure how they looked on TV, but I know the average lap time or the average speed was like around 65, 66 miles per hour. Sure, the cars weren't going that fast, but you could see clearly the closing rates when guys would charge the entry of the corner. Middle of the corner, you'd see drivers just slide the cars around, just yank the rear tires around the corner. There was tons of wheel smoke, lockups, things like that. You could see them slide through the corner. So even though the speeds weren't as high as Kansas or Talladega, the racing looked physical. Like, it looked like the drivers were really working behind the wheel, almost like indoor go-karts, just yanking the cars around the corner. I enjoyed watching that as a fan in person. I hope on TV it did it justice. Short track racing leads to short track tempers. Let's talk about some of them. Early on, Todd Gilliland, a rookie, right hooked Eric Almirola heading into turn 3, sent Almirola into the wall hard. I get that Almirola had run into Gilliland a bit early on, but to me it was a little ballsy for a young rookie to hook a guy, a veteran who's literally on his way out to spend time with his wife and kids, to hook that guy into the fence in an exhibition race early, not even in the main event, that to me was a little excessive. Now, he wasn't the only driver to step over the line. Yeah, he's a rookie, I can forgive him. Veteran drivers, championship drivers like Kyle Larson lost their cool, this time in the main event. Justin Haley ran to the back of him. I think Haley got run over from behind by somebody else. I don't even remember who. It might have been William Byron, Larson's teammate, but Larson in the heat of the moment thinking Justin Haley, another younger driver, not quite a rookie, but a younger driver, showing disrespect. Larson, blinded by his anger, just body slammed the 31 going down the front stretch, junked his Chevrolet. Larson went on scot-free. That was also uncalled for. Kyle Larson's a champion. We need to hold him to that standard. Seemed like an overreaction, especially considering this kind of racing. Guys were leaning on each other all day long. So to overreact like that, in my opinion, was surprising coming from a guy like Kyle Larson, who always seems to be pretty even keel, pretty calm. He was still running in the top 5. It's not like he was back in 20th place out of contention, mad. He was still in contention for the win. I thought that was a bit surprising. You had Ryan Blaney mad at Eric Jones. Jones body slammed Blaney in the middle of the corner a bit, put Blaney in the wall. He ended up going to the garage. I don't know if it was because something got shook loose or if it was an unrelated mechanical issue, but yeah, that really ended Blaney's night in the main event. So he was mad at Eric Jones, probably justifiably so. The tempers were plenty, which I think made for great entertainment. At least in person it did. I hope it did on TV. There were also penalties that spoiled some surprisingly good runs, like Ty Dillon, who was kind of a menace in his last chance qualifier. He moved on until NASCAR penalized him for jumping the final restart. He actually got penalized twice in that race for jumping restarts. So something he'll have to work on. I haven't gone back and seen a great replay, so I'm not entirely sure how egregious it was. I know Ty Dillon disagreed with the calls, but of course he is. He's the driver who was penalized. I know so far I've said mostly positive things about the racing, but there was one clear, glaring negative. The next gen car, brand new, first actual race with this car, had a couple of hiccups. Most notably when race leader Tyler Reddick just pulled his car behind the wall, just stalled under caution and retired from the race. Out of nowhere. Apparently he broke a transaxle while shifting under caution. I don't think it's anything he did wrong. It sounds like just a piece of the next gen, something that was likely supplied by a third-party vendor, failed. Just a fluky deal. Now, brand new car, it has not been tested in full-on, full-contact race action yet, is going to have some hiccups. There are going to be a few kinks here and there, probably mostly early in the season. But this was certainly a big one. Happened to the race leader under caution. That's obviously frustrating. I imagine Tyler Reddick and RCR were probably a bit frustrated by that. I know many of his fans probably are. There were a couple other incidents as well. Hamlin went to the garage with, I don't know, it looked like an engine issue of some sort. I don't know what the actual issue was. I know Chase Briscoe around the same time went to the garage. Over like a 2-lap span, 3 drivers in the main event retired from the race due to various mechanical issues. So the next gen car went through some growing pains tonight. Again, some of that's to be expected, but it did get in the way of the race. I mean, the leader of the race just suddenly died on the track. His car just stopped. Left a lot of us in the stands asking questions. What's going on? What happened? What's happening? So that part was frustrating. So hopefully these kinks get worked out and become less and less frequent as the year goes on. But that is going to be a frustrating element of this season because these are spec cars and the teams, for the most part, don't build any of these parts themselves. When one of them fails, it quite literally is bad luck. Sure, there are things the teams will do to set the car up that might strain certain elements more than others, but ultimately bad luck, I think, ended Tyler Reddick's race tonight. You know, we're more than halfway through this video and I haven't even mentioned who won this race. So let's pivot real quick. Joey Logano won. He will go down in history as the first winner in the Clash at the Coliseum. He'll go down as the first winner in the next gen car era. Congrats to him. He seemed to have the best all-around car all night long. He was chasing down Kyle Busch he was pretty far behind. He was chasing down Kyle Busch before the stage break, before the ice cube break. Got past Kyle Busch in the second 75-lap stint, pulled away for a while, and then late, Kyle Busch started to reel him in. I thought we had a race. He got pretty close, but never quite got close enough to really challenge Logano. Joey Logano earned this win. Congrats to him. It was a lot of your usual players up front. Logano, Kyle Busch was really fast. He started on pole. He seemed frustrated afterwards. Wins the pole. He expected to win the race, did not. Kyle Larson, defending champion, gets 5th. But look at Austin Dillon in 3rd. I mentioned Tyler Reddick was leading the race when he had a mechanical failure. Austin Dillon, the second RCR car, also had top 5 speed. So a great start for RCR this year. Eric Jones, my boy, started I think around 12th, 13th, worked his way forward slowly but surely, stayed out of trouble for the most part when he wasn't running into Ryan Blaney, and finished 4th. That's a heck of a start for an RPM, well, now a Petty GMS team that struggled last season. So I was excited to see that. Solid run for Cole Custer. Shout out Harrison Burton being, I believe, the only rookie to make the main event. Austin Cindric, Todd Gilliland, like I mentioned earlier, had some issues in their heat races and in the last chance qualifier. A lot of people are sleeping on Harrison Burton, and I think some of that's justified. I don't think he's necessarily Cup Series ready, but he was pretty impressive this weekend, so I'll give him some props. Not too much else to say. It was a rough day for RFK, Roush Fenway Keselowski. Neither Brad or Chris Buescher showed any sort of speed really all weekend long. Neither made the main event. That's disappointing. I have some high expectations for RFK this year. I'm not picking him to win a championship, but I had Keselowski making the playoffs because he's a veteran championship caliber driver, and with the next gen I thought that team was primed to take a big step forward. Did not look like it so far this weekend at the Clash. We'll move on to Daytona and hopefully they make some big strides there. But those are your top finishers from tonight's Clash at the Coliseum. Now lastly, it is a new year, but some things never change. Before I go, let's put this race on the Groovy Gauge. If you're new here, the Groovy Gauge is my personal experimental scale. Basically, I look at a race from an entertainment standpoint, a competitive standpoint, and I tell you all if it was enjoyable, if it was a good race, if it was fun, if it was close, if it was exciting, if it was challenging, if the storylines were there, if drivers really had to work to win. I analyze a wide variety of abstract and often unclear factors when weighing my Groovy Gauge scores. That's what makes it so fun. You never know what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis. My opinions are never consistent. I'm going to look at the entirety of today's event because if you factor in all the heat races, the LCQs, and the main, I think it was, what, 350 laps of racing? That's less than Bristol. Looking at the entirety of the event, that second last chance qualifier got a bit sloppy towards the end, just drivers racing without a care in the world, a lot of desperate rookie drivers up front. That got a little sloppy, kind of dragged the thing a little bit. Some of it was fun. I mean, I want to see some beating and banging at a quarter-mile short track, but it got a little excessive. The finish was a tiny bit anticlimactic. I really wanted Kyle Busch to at least take a shot at Joey Logano. I didn't want him to just wreck Logano, but I wanted him to get there. He never quite got there, so that was a little, just a little, left a little to be desired. But overall, if I just focus on the racing and try to ignore the other extenuating circumstances of this event, I still think this stood out as a very enjoyable race, a day of racing. I'm going to give it an 85% on the Groovy Gauge. I thought today was very positive for a number of reasons. Beat and banging short track action at its finest for the most part. I think this was a very positive weekend for NASCAR. Now, looking forward, what comes out of this? Do we come back to the Clash next year? NASCAR's Ben Kennedy sounded non-committal, certainly left the door open, but did not commit to coming back to the Coliseum. NASCAR and its executives have said many times over the last few days that this race could open the door to NASCAR stock car racing going international. Mexico City, Canada, Europe, maybe back to Japan at some point. I think any and all options are on the table, and after today's race I think was largely a success, some of those options may have even expanded. So let your imaginations run wild. Where would you like to see NASCAR stadium race next? Leave a comment down below. That's gonna do it for my first race review episode of the year. Again, on the road in a hotel. We love it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. I saw on my Twitter feed at least all day. It felt like a lot of new fans were tuning in, chiming in. So if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We talk NASCAR news, notes, and much more nearly every single day. And as always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. I actually met a couple of y'all at the track today, which was really, really cool. Appreciate the support. As of the time you're watching this, I'm probably on a plane back to Texas. So I'll see you all again real soon. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.